it's the first of a series. I hope you'll be with us for the next session. We are very lucky to have outstanding scholars for different topic. But first, I will say a few words about the organization Yahadi for those who are not familiar with our work. We are primarily a research organization. We research on mass crime and genocide. We have documented and located thousands of execution sites of Jewish victims of the Holocaust in the East and Roma victims as well. We will focus particularly on them today with the speech of Miss Joanna Talewicz-Kwiatkowska. Sorry, for a French speaker, it's not that easy, so bear with me. Sorry, Joanna. So I was saying we are primarily a research organization, but for years we've done much more than this. We've developed a unique pedagogy based on our research methodology. The aim of that series of conference is to enlarge this pedagogy that we are implementing in Europe, in the US, but also in Guatemala. I want to mention the fact that the director of the museum we founded in Guatemala, Mr. Del Valle, is online with us today. So this is a broadening of that pedagogy, not only directed to students, not only directed to teachers, but to a general public, a public who's interested in knowing more about mass crimes, the genocide of Roma people, particularly today, but not only for the beauty of art or the beauty of science. That's not what we do. Education is necessary, research is necessary, but they're not enough. What we want to do is engage people. And this conference and the fact that it's online and it's reaching out to a vast number of people, the fact that the pandemic forced us to be creative with our education is a great opportunity, I think, because we can really reflect on what does it mean to learn about a mass crime, about hate crimes in general. It means that we need to engage and to do something at our level. Today, the sanitary context is making us feel that the danger is always outside. It's the virus, this dangerous disease. But I hope that after those conferences, we'll get the habit of thinking maybe, we are all potential dangers. Humans are potential dangers to others. This is the only way, this is a tough question, but it's the only way we will be able to make a change. The topic of the conference today is particularly dear to us because it's the first time we researched and we gathered testimonies of survivors. It was Roma survivors, and it changed a lot in the organization because, as you know, it's a very particular voice in historiography, survivors, and those survivors were vastly forgotten. We have hundreds of them, and I'm very, very eager to learn what Joanna has to teach us about their fate. So let's learn about them. Let's take the most out of this remarkable scholar that we have the luck to have tonight with us. But let's also reflect on what we can do to identify the forgotten victims, not in the past only, but today around us, and what we can do to help them. Thank you very much to everyone. I'm giving the floor to Michał Chojak, our research director.
Thank you, Emmanuel, for this introduction. So, dear friends, welcome to everyone. Today we have the pleasure to host Joanna Talewicz-Kwiatkowska for this first conference of this new online program that we entitled Beyond Memory. Joanna is a colleague, but it's also a friend of us, of Yahadinunum. We had the opportunity to cooperate together in the past. For instance, last January, we did a training together for the guides of the Auschwitz-Birkenau Museum about the fate of Roma during World War II. And during this training, Joanna gave a remarkable and fascinating presentation about the fate of Roma and the persecutions, especially in the General Gouvernement during World War II. So Joanna is one of the main specialists about the history, the culture of Romani people, but also their present conditions in Poland and abroad. A PhD in anthropology. Joanna teaches at the Jagielloński University in Kraków and at the University of Warsaw. She's also the scientific advisor to the Auschwitz-Birkenau Museum. Moreover, she is a recipient of very various and prestigious like awards and fellowship. I would not be able to speak about all of them, but for instance, she was a fellow of the Fulbright program. She published widely on Romani people, but also on minorities and on human rights. And among this publication, Joanna, correct me if I'm wrong, but your last book that you co-edited with Joanna Ostrowska and Lutz van Dijk about sexual minorities persecuted in Auschwitz was just released a few days ago in German language, right? And this book is entitled Erinnern in Auschwitz, auch an sexuelle Minderheiten. So dear friends and colleagues, today during her presentation, Joanna will talk about the genocide of Roma, giving us an outline about who are the Romani people, about their history of persecution in the last centuries, and after giving a context about the genocide of Roma, she will talk concretely about different forms of persecutions of Romani communities during World War II in German occupied territories, but also about the fate of Roma and Sinti in Auschwitz-Birkenau. So Joanna, thank you very much again for having accepted the invitation, especially for having accepted to inaugurate the program. We all know that it's never easy to be the first. We will listen you for the next 30-40 minutes, and then you will have like time to answer to the question of the audience. And dear audience, please keep your microphone off. If you have any questions, please write them on the chat, and we will read them to Joanna Talewicz-Kwiatkowska at the end of her presentation. I'm sorry for the inconvenience, but as we are many, if we allow everyone to ask questions orally, it might be complicated for Joanna to give her presentation. Joanna, thank you again. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Hello, welcome, and thank you for this very nice introduction. I'm very happy to be here with all of you. So I would like to also thank you for one more time for the invitation, and I would like to emphasize that I'm very, very happy, and I think that it's very important that this topic is a part of this series of seminars. So I'm very glad, and I'm also very open to ask your questions after my presentation, like Mr. Hoyak said. But before, of course, I would like to tell you more about the history of Roma people. I will be focused on, especially on a different kind of form of extermination of European Roma. But in last part of my presentation, I would like to also speak more about the present situation. Okay, so I think it's a good moment to start. In 2000, New York Times published an article describing a court case from 1956. The Roma woman brought a claim for damages to the state court in Germany, claiming that the reason for her deportation by Nazis in 1940 was racial persecution. The state court upheld the woman's claims. They were rejected by German Supreme Court, which argued that Nazi officials deported a Roma woman because of obligation regarding national security. The judge stated that the resettlement action was contrary to the principle of legal justice and was terrible, but it wasn't racial persecution. 7 years later, the Federal Court of Justice changed the previous position. It was then stated that the basis for the racial persecution of Roma and Sinti was Himmler's decree against the Gypsy plague, according to which the regulation of the so-called Gypsy issue was based on racial criteria. Unfortunately, officials, lawyers, and even scholars, historians, researchers accepted the opinion that the antisocial and criminogenic nature of Roma people, Roma and Sinti people, were the reason for their persecution. This is one of the reasons why the Roma and Sinti Holocaust was not studied until 40 years after the war. Stereotypes about Roma have had a very, very long history. So perception Roma people as, I don't know, outsiders who are not European, work shy, asocial, socially unjusted people who deny the idea of development and modernity is deeply rooted among European societies. In this context, I would like to emphasize that persecution, as I said before, persecution of Roma have much more longer history and did not begin with the Nazis came power. They exactly knew how to manipulate society and used old and very well-known stereotypes to create enemy and divide German society. So Roma people, next to Jewish people, became scapegoat. And it wasn't first time in their history when they had this position. Coming back to the Nazi and to the time of election in Germany, which took place in 1933. I would like to say that we should remember that it was a very, very specific time. After the world economic crisis between 1929 and 1933, and after Germany's defeat in the First World War, social economic situation in Germany was really, really bad. People felt really, really disappointed because of policy, because of in general atmosphere, but people also felt scared and really frustrated. So they needed a strong leader with new ideas, new new vision of the future. Probably therefore Adolf Hitler won democratic election and became the most important person in Germany. And as I said before, the election took place in 1933. Hitler promised better life, which meant better economy and the same, much more stable situation. So he said exactly what people needed to hear. He promised to create a strong Germany and strong Europe in the future. He also, as you exactly know, he also used propaganda tools and stereotypes, prejudice, to convince people that this vision is possible, but only without groups perceived as a threat to the social and economic order. This is how the category of so-called asocial groups was created. It includes the Roma people, but also those who needed support from the state. So elderly people, sick people, disabled, and of course homosexuals. So it was very, very connected with also economy. As I said before, it was after economic crisis, and the Germany was had a very, very bad economic situation. So Hitler exactly knew. That's why he unfortunately was a very good leader, because exactly he felt and he knew what kind of context he faced, and he was great as a manipulator. Coming back to the groups who are perceived as a social group, as a problem for state budget, I would like to say that according to Nazis, there was also one more category, which is the most dangerous for whole social order, he said: Roma and Jewish people. Both groups were included to these categories as a group who are not able to change, who are not able to be integrated into majority, who are not able to, let's say, live in normal German society, who are able to live in normal Europe, normal, strong Europe, normal like this, I mean, so-called normal. So he said also that they are not able because they have some features which are genetic. Therefore, it's impossible for them to change, even in concentration or work camps. So, as they said, only one, actually, there is only one way to remove this problem and implement the project Big and Strong Reich and Strong Europe. This way, it's a physical extermination, both groups. In the first years after the Nazis came to power, they introduced a range of anti-Gypsy, anti-Roma, but Nazis use the word Zigeuner, what means gypsy in English. That's why sometimes, even if it's pejorative word, it was very visible in German documents and their policy towards Roma. So they introduced a range of anti-Gypsy restrictions, including an obligation for them to register and submit to racial extermination. Later, they introduced limitations on freedom of movement. stated that the gypsies, freedom of movement. Commenter, it's very also important, and I forgot to mention about the Nuremberg law. A special part, which was part of Nuremberg laws, which was published in September 1935, stated that the gypsies were just a racially alien as the Jews, and therefore could not enjoy the rights of citizens of the Reich. A very important aspect of the Nazi policy towards the Roma and Sinti was the preparation of racial criteria for defining the Roma. The criteria were quite broad. It was enough to have to, out of 8 great grandparents, be considered a Roma. The Institute for the Study of Racial Hygiene was established before the war in 1937. And this institute carried out racist research. Nazi psychiatric, doctor, Robert Ritter, was head of this institute. His assistant, Eva Justin, she was anthropologist, conducted research among Roma children from Mulfingen, it's in Germany, near Stuttgart, and all of children, 39 children, was deported to Auschwitz and killed in gas chambers. Roma were deported to the concentration camp before the war. In 1936, Olympics were organized in Berlin. Before this event, Roma and Sinti were removed from the city and deported to the special created Marzahn camp. It was also in Germany. They were also deported before the war to the Dachau, for example. Soon after the start of the war, the Germans decided to remove the Sinti and Roma for the terrain of the Reich. They were ordered to resettle in the general government, occupied Poland, where they were placed in Jewish ghettos and camped for Jewish people. Let me mention about 2 ghettos. Over 5,000 German, Sinti, and Roma were placed in Łódź, which is in central part in Poland, and majority of them murdered soon afterwards at Kulmhof extermination center. So in a Jewish ghetto in Łódź, special camp was created. It was in 1941, and it was the first Zigeunerlager special camp for Roma people, which was created especially for Roma people. So even before Zigeunerlager in Auschwitz-Birkenau was created. So Łódź, and Jewish ghetto, was a first. So 5,000 German, actually not only German, but especially Sinti from Austria, rich people, they were deported to this camp, and they were killed in the Kulmhof extermination center. And the second important place, especially here in Poland, because it's connected with a very also tragic history, Warsaw Ghetto. Also Roma people were deported there, especially Roma from Poland and Roma also from Germany. In Warsaw Ghetto, Roma and Jewish people, they were together, not like in Łódź, where Roma people were separated. In 1942, Warsaw Ghetto was liquidated. It meant that all people Roma, but of course Jewish people. They were deported to Treblinka death camp, and they were killed there. I mentioned about 2 ghettos, but in territory of Poland, as you probably know, we had many mass extermination places like death camps especially, but also many Jewish ghettos, special districts for Jewish, and actually almost every ghetto Roma people were together with the Jewish people. We have many testimonies of Roma who mentioned about their history and their fate in different kind of ghettos. Unfortunately, we don't know too much about this history. It never was researched, this topic, and I hope to start this research this year, because it's one of the most important plan, and I think that it's very important to have information about the whole history of Roma fate during the Nazi period. Apart from ghettos and camps, Roma were also killed outside the camps, especially in Poland and former Soviet countries. They were killed where they were catched. In Poland, we had and we still have a groups of Roma people who have nomadic and settled experiences. And their experiences, I mean nomadic Roma and settled Roma, were also a bit different during the war. Roma people who were settled, they were killed where they lived. So it was, let's say, quite easy for Nazi to find them, to identify them. When it comes to nomadic Roma, they were hidden in different forests in Poland. They were nomads before the war, so they were very well oriented when it comes to the routes and paths and different places in Polish forests. However, they were killed where they were cached. So sometimes even 100 people were killed during that kind of action, which was called mass extermination outside the camp. Now I would like to mention and tell you about 2 stories of 2 amazing Polish Romani women who survived extermination outside the camps. These 2 women had different experiences, and Christina Gill, she is a part of group of Roma who never been nomadic, and Alfreda Markowska, she is from nomads, from Roma who were travelers before and also after the war. I would like to tell you about Christina Gill first, but before I do this, I would like to also show you very, very short movie, which is important for me because it's a short movie with my grandmother. She also experienced mass extermination outside the camp. She survived. She passed away, but she survived the war, and I would like to show you very short testimonies of my grandmother, which was recorded for Shoah Foundation. Okay, so let me do this.
Handlował tatuś z koniami. Mama chodziła, wróżyła. Tatuś handlował. Pomagał mamusi wszystko. Dzieci dużo było. No, tak my żyli, proszę pana. Później jak wojna przyleciała.
Ale wróćmy jeszcze do rodziców.
No to
rodzice mieli swój wór.
mieli swój wóz, konie mieli wszystkie, 2 konie mój tatuś miał. Handlował z koniami.
A w jakich okolicach Polski?
Tutaj, po Śląsku.
Po Śląsku.
Po Śląsku, w Kraków. Tak, to jest też te strony. A gdzie indziej my nie jeździli nigdzie. Tu mi się wychowali na Śląsku. Bo najpierw wszystkich Żydów brali, później za nas się chwycili, później. No to wtedy szczelali, mordowali moją całą rodzinę, od matki, wujków, braciów, wszystkich pozabijali w lesie. Wszystkich dzieci moich.
Gdzie to było?
Za Miechowem. To jest...
And now I would like to show you also quite short testimonies of testimony of Christina Gill. She is Polish. She is as well Polish Roma, and she is a person who survived mass murder in Szczurowa. On July, let me briefly describe you the situation in Szczurowa during the war. On July 1943, the Nazis murdered almost the entire community in Szczurowa. Szczurowa is south part of Poland. It's quite near Krakow. Only few Roma survived this massacre, including then 4 years old Christina Gill and her mother. I would like to also say that I mentioned that Christina is from Roma group who were settled, and what is important, they were very well integrated with the local community. They were close one another. They were sometimes families because mixed marriages also happened there. So Polish neighbors also tried to help Roma, but unfortunately it wasn't possible. So now I would like to show you testimonies of Christina Gill. I have to share my screen. Let me do this, and I hope everything will be happen. I have many notes here, but I have also movie. Okay, let's start.
Ja nazywam się Krystyna Gill. Urodziłam się w wielkiej miejscowości o nazwie Szczurowa, gdzie mieszkało około 100 osób pochodzenia romskiego. Ja tam mieszkałam z całą rodziną. Myśmy byli Romami nie bezrobnymi, tylko osiadłymi, gdzie mieliśmy swoje małe gospodarstwa. Mój dziaduś miał swoją orkiestrę, gdzie grywał po weselach, po chrzcinach, po zabawach. Natomiast mężczyźni wyrabiali patelnie, a kobiety chodziły to po wsiach i sprzedawały. My natomiast takie dzieci większe paśliśmy krowy u gospodarza, gdzie dostawaliśmy wyżywienie. A takie małe dzieci, takie 5-6 lat, no to bawiły się beztrosko, nie zdawaliśmy sobie sprawy z tego, co nas otacza. Nie zdawaliśmy sobie z tego sprawy, że wojna jest, bo byliśmy pod opieką rodziców. 3 lipca w 1943 roku Niemcy otoczyli całą osadę romską, zaczęli wyrzucać wszystkich na dwór. Mój dziaduś nie chciał wyjść na dwór, został zastrzelony w domu jako pierwszy. Po wyprowadzeniu wszystkich na dwór wyłapano samych mężczyzn, wywieziono ich w stronę cmentarza, gdzie ich rozstrzeliwano. Później jak się wrócili po kobiety i dzieci, to ja siedziałam na wozie razem z bratem, siostrą, z mamą, z całą rodziną. Natomiast babcia chciała wsiadać na wóz, ale nie zmieściła się i Niemiec ją tak odrzucił na bok. Wtedy moja mama wzięła mnie z wozu, dała babci i mówi, masz, jak zostaniesz, to chociaż cię ona zostanie. Babcia nie bardzo mnie chciała wziąć, dlatego że mama miała mniej całe 5 latek, wołała brata, który miał 10 lat. Ale on był mądrzejszy i mówi, mama ginie, ja z nią, i pojechał na cmentarz, tam został rozstrzelany. Natomiast takie małe dzieci, takie 2-3 latka, nie były rozstrzeliwane, bo szkoda było kul, tylko łapał za główki i rozbijał główkami o mur i tak rzucał do domu. Tak zginęła moja siostra, bo miała niecałe 3 latka. Po rozstrzelaniu wszystkich wrócili się po nas, bo nas zostało może ze 7 osób. Załadowano nas na wóz i uwieziono w stronę cmentarza. Tylko tam we wsi taka pani Piotrowska miała restaurację, zawołała tych Niemców na poczęstunek, oni weszli do środka, wyszedł policjant granatowy i mówi, kto może, niech ucieka. I tak żeśmy uciekły z babcią ze Szczurowych. Po ucieczce ze Szczurowych ukrywaliśmy się, chodziliśmy od wsi do wsi, od domu do domu, ukrywaliśmy się przed Niemcami. Złapano nas w styczniu 1944 roku w łapance i wywieziono nas do obozu do Płaszowa. W Płaszowie byliśmy 4 miesiące. Tam podczas naszego pobytu w obozie poznaliśmy Niemca, który doskonale mówił po języku polskim. I po prostu on nawiązał kontakt z babcią i po 4 miesiącach po prostu przyszedł do mnie i do babci, zawołał nas obydwie. Nie wiedzieliśmy, czy nas będzie wywoził do innego obozu, czy na rozstrzelanie. Tymczasem on nas wyprowadził poza teren obozu, kazał nam uciekać i tak uciekłyśmy z Warszawa. Chodziłyśmy od wsi do wsi, aż do...
Okay. I would like to say that this material with Christina Gill you can find also in internet because it was prepared especially for 76th anniversary of the liquidation of Zigeunerlager in Auschwitz-Birkenau, which we had on the 2nd of August. So this testimonies is also available online, and you can watch whole video and find out more about Christina Gill's story. I would like to add also that she's really amazing woman. Of course, her history and braveness and everything, but she's also a very, very active person. I know her quite well. She lives in Krakow, and when she was a bit younger, when she was better than right now, she met a lot of young people, many groups, Roma, non-Roma, from all over the world, and she told them story. She also discussed with the young people about the present situation and the many dangers which we face right now as well. But I would like to also say that Christina Markowska established first women Roma organization here in Poland. So she was a first and very, very active woman who is very important for all of us because of different, of course, reasons. And the second and the third, actually, woman which I would like to mention about is Alfreda Markowska, who came from nomadic Roma who were hiding in the forests during the war, as I mentioned before. In 1941, the Nazis murdered her family, including her parents and siblings. Alfreda Markowska was very young, and she survived. In 1942, she was imprisoned in the Lublin ghetto, in Jewish ghettos as well, then transported to Łódź and Bełżec camp, from where she escaped. Alfreda Markowska, after this, Alfreda Markowska was employed by railroad, obtaining a certificate of employment, protecting her against roundups. During this period, she was actively involved. I mean, she rescued Roma and Jewish children from transports to the camps. It was a huge risk, but she not only rescued them, but she obtained hiding places for them and provided them with false documents. It is estimated that about 50 children were saved thanks to her, and she was completely alone. She was not connected with any organization or groups. It was only her and a few people around her, like her husband or close family. Alfreda Markowska, she's still alive, but she's not well because of course, biological reason, and unfortunately, she's not able to speak about her story right now. But I hope that movie about her story will be created. But because one Polish director recorded her story in the past. We don't know actually how many Roma were killed outside the camps. About 200 mass graves have been found in a forest in Poland. But as I said before, that kind of practice was implemented by Nazis in also former Soviet countries, and unfortunately, we don't have any data from former Soviet countries because that kind of research has not been conducted until now. Despite the many forums and places where European Roma were murdered, Auschwitz-Birkenau became the symbol of mass extermination of European Roma. Special camp for Roma was created in 1943. The camp existed 17 months and was liquidated during the one night of the 2nd of August, 1944. About 4,300 people who remained in Zigeunerlager, especially older people, women, children, were killed in gas chambers. Establishment of Zigeunerlager was the consequence of Auschwitz-Birkenau. It was a document which was signed by Heinrich Himmler on December 16th, 1942. It was one of the most tragic data for European Roma and Sinti. And this document and Himmler ordered the deportation of all Sinti and Roma to a concentration camp. The implementing regulation for this order, issued on January 29th, 1943, specified that Auschwitz was the place of deportation, should be place of this deportation. As it turned out, and I would like to also mention about this, it's important, the Roma were present in Auschwitz from 1941, so even before creation of Zigeunerlager. They came mainly from occupied Poland, the Protectorate Bohemia and Moravia, and the Third Reich. Coming back to Zigeunerlager, to the special camp for Roma. First transport with Roma came to Zigeunerlager on the February 26, 1943. People were in terrible situation because the camp was still under construction. The detainees came to Zigeunerlager came mainly from the territories of Germany, Austria, the Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia, and Poland. In smaller groups also from France, the Netherlands, Yugoslavia, Belgium, the Soviet Union, Lithuania, and Hungary. Also, a small group of Roma people from Norway and Spain were deported to Zigeunerlager. It is estimated that about 23 people were imprisoned in the camp. Men, women, and children. 11,000 women. Zigeunerlager was situated in the B2E sector, so it was a Birkenau sector. And what is important, Sinti and Roma were not subject to the selection after arriving at the camp, and families were all together, were not broken up. It was a family camp, Familienzigeunerlager. You can also find this name in documents. So women, children, men, they were as I said, all together. So in this context, the Roma camp was different from other camps in Karl Auschwitz. And actually, until today, we don't know why. We don't know the reasons of this situation. There are no documents in our archives in Auschwitz museums. And we don't have any information which could explain this fact. One of the hypotheses is based on Rudolf Hess' opinion, who mentioned about this in his autobiography. He said that the main goal of Nazis when it comes to Roma and Sinti was deported them as fast as possible and kill them in short period of time, without work, without any special heavy program. Just only have them in the camp and liquidate them. It doesn't mean that Roma people didn't work in the camp. Of course they did, but I mentioned that Zigeunerlager was under construction, so they worked, but inside the Zigeunerlager, not outside the camp like other prisoners. And what was different as well from other part of camp, the camp consisted of 52 wooden barracks. And of course the barrack, like other parts of camp, were overcrowded. In May 1943, Josef Mengele held the post of the head physician in Zigeunerlager. So Roma people were really numbers of victims of his experiments. So it was one of the most, numerous group which was victims of these experiments, especially twins, especially pregnant women, and people who suffer from a disease known as a water cancer, so-called NOMA. Mengele held the post of head physician of the Zigeunerlager until its liquidation, which took place on the 2nd of August, 1994. I mentioned that during that night, all remaining Roma were killed in gas chambers. Unfortunately, after the war, the crimes committed against Roma by National Socialists, by Nazis, didn't attract the attention of the world immediately, and have no been acknowledgement in the way to the crimes against Jewish people. Holocaust was and still is in the center of human history, but Roma people was the first who were excluded from category of victims. Roma people were also excluded from Nuremberg trials. Therefore, people who were part of Nazis' policy against Roma could continue their career after the war. Like, for example, Robert Ritter, who was the head of Racial Institute and who signed the document about the deportation to Auschwitz. After the war, he became a doctor in a hospital in Frankfurt. He ran the private practice, and he was a court expert. Also, Eva Justin, who was his assistant during the war, he also worked with him after the war in a hospital in Frankfurt. He also was very well respected child psychologist. And many people like Ritter and like Eva Justin, they never had any consequences because, as I said, Roma were excluded from Nuremberg law. Finally, things have started to change, quite late, but it happened. And it happened thanks to Roma and Sinti activists, Roma who were active in a post-war period, Roma who lost their families during the war. So for them, it was one of the most important projects, let's say, in their life, to speak about their story, especially that anti-Gypsyism and policy against Roma was still strict and very tragic for Roma people, who were not recognized as victims. In terrible situation had survivors, people who were in the camps as well. They had no documents, so they were like people who don't have estates. If they weren't recognized as victims, they had no special right to, make their situation more stable when it comes to documents, for example. So one of the crucial moments which I would like to mention about was a hunger protest set up in 1980 by several German Roma in a former concentration camp in Dachau. They were there with the people who were in Dachau during the war, so they were survivors. It was absolutely the main goal was absolutely to attract attention to Roma struggle for recognition on their fate under Nazi period, and it happened. 1 year later, in 1981, German Roma occupied the university archives in Tübingen. With this university, also Robert Ritter, as a doctor, as a scientist, was connected. In this archive were about 20,000 files collected by Nazi. In these archives, these files were stored. Roma had no access to these files after the war, which were so much important evidence also for the compensation. This event can be interpreted and is interpreted as an attempt of the organized the movement of Roma who take control of their own past. Currently, the commemoration of the crimes committed against Roma and Sinti is extremely important issue for the community and especially for leaders of Roma people. There are, of course, even more than a few reasons of that, but this is topic for another discussion. But I have to say that the memory of Nazi crimes is a unifying element for community spread among many countries, diverse in terms of dialect and culture, and thus an important factor contributing to the emergence of a shared Roma and Sinti national identity. When it comes to Poland and the commemoration in former Auschwitz-Birkenau, it wasn't possible after the war because in Poland we had a second totalitarianism after the war. It was a communism. So, excuse me. So the first anniversary was organized after communism fall. first Roma organization was established, like a non-governmental Roma organization was established in Poland in 1991. And 3 years later, 1994, the commemoration was organized by this organization. And I remember this event very well. I was teenager. I was 14, but I was there. I was there with my father and a few members of my family, and I was there also because Oświęcim, which is a town where Auschwitz was established during the war, this is my hometown. I was born there, and for my family was also very important to show this, you know, the part of our history. In that time, you couldn't find too many information about the Roma in Auschwitz, but as I said, after the war, in post-war period, we had also very complicated political situation in Poland. In 1944, during the commemoration event, I remember that 8 or 9 people were with us. I mean, my father, me, 1 or 2 people from Jewish community, and 2 people from Auschwitz Museum, and that's it. And we started like this. Now this anniversary, this commemoration, which is organized every single day, every single year, in former Zigeunerlager area, has an official character, and a lot of people, Roma, non-Roma, officials, politicians, you know, coming to participate in this commemoration. We also organize many educational activities in cooperation with many organizations, institutions, like Auschwitz State Museum, like Polin Museum of History of Polish Jews. So it's a very, very important date. They also, because of educational tools which we try to implement, because still we have a problem with the knowledge about the Roma Holocaust. In Polish books, you cannot find any information. Sometimes 1 or 2 sentences, and that's it. So it's still like a white card of history. So education about this, it's a huge challenge and one of the most important projects for all of us, not only for Roma, because it's our common history, it's our European history. So we should do this all together. I think that in the end, I would like to say that there are many opinions about the phenomenon of breaking the silence regarding the Roma Holocaust, which must be interpreted in the context of contemporary situation of Roma communities in Poland, in Europe, almost everywhere. Past as a factor for solidarity with the today persecuted Roma, who are not only the biggest minority in contemporary Europe. We have between 12 or 15 million people who are Roma and who live in Europe. But the Roma are also the most social excluded group. Still, in 21st century, people live without electricity, without the water, experiencing hate speech, violence, prejudice. They are scapegoat again, because probably you see, very similar situation, like analogy, unfortunately, which is a very good time for radical groups. It's a very dangerous time, we are after economic crisis, like before the war. Now we have a, huge crisis which is also economic crisis connected with coronavirus. Violence against Roma during lockdown was documented by European Roma Rights Center. Many radical groups in many countries gain power, and they openly, call to solve, let's say, gypsy problem. In 2008 and 2009, few Roma people were killed by a radical group in Hungary. Violence in Romania, Bulgaria, they are physically also persecuted. They are excluded from many areas of social life. So it's a very, very dangerous and very specific situation right now. And unfortunately, even in Poland, when we have not a big Roma community, we have only 30,000 people, but the problem are the same. And of course, like other countries where we have bigger population of Roma people, like Romania or Bulgaria, when we have a deal with the open racism, without sometimes any reaction. It's like a naturalization of racism and acceptation of racism against Roma people. And of course, I don't want to leave you with a perception that, or with a image of Roma who are, who suffer from poverty and who are victims. It's not like that. We have many active people, many educated people. We not all Roma suffer from poverty, but still we are minority everywhere. We don't have a political power. We don't have a country, which doesn't mean only territory, which means power, economy, political representation. As a minority, we have a non-governmental organization, so we are much more weaker. So definitely in the end, I would like to recall Professor Jeffrey Alexander Ward, who is rather pessimistic regarding this issue. As he says, the Roma are acknowledged by many contemporary countries as trauma victims of a tragic history. Yet, insofar as large numbers of Central European represent Roma people as a deviant and uncivilized, unfortunately. Thank you so much for your attention. I completely forgot about the time, so I hope not extended this time. And I'm, as I said in the beginning of my presentation, I'm very, very open to answer your question. I'm ready to discuss with you. Thank you so much one more time for your attention.
Thank you very much, Joanna, for your fascinating lecture and your very complete and exhaustive lecture about the fate of Roma. I know it's not easy because you tackled many topics, many geographical areas, and in a very short amount of time. Actually, there were a few questions, so maybe I will read some of them. There were a question according to the fate of Romani groups deported from Balkanic countries like Albania, Bulgaria, Greece. Do you have any information or statistics to share about the fate of Romani groups from there?
Mm-hmm. As I mentioned, we have some documents and in Auschwitz Museum Archive. And we are able to confirm that Roma from former Yugoslavic countries, especially from Croatia, they were deported to the Auschwitz as well. but many of them were murdered in Jasenovac camp, which was established in Croatia, and it was the first country who, you know, which said that they have a success, and it meant that all Roma people were killed, and it was 1941. So they were murdered, especially there, and some of them were deported to Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camp, to Zigeunerlager. And I unfortunately I couldn't read your all comments in chat, but I saw that you were not able to see English subtitles because of something which was on my screen. Am I right? If yes, I will send you these two movies so you can open in your laptop and see the English subtitles. And I'm sorry for this.
There is also a question from Alessandro Mata. Hi, Alessandro. Are you involved also in research about the fate of Roma people in Romania and in the camps in Transnistria?
I have a great cooperation with the people who are focused on this topic and who are scholars, like especially from Roma community, like Ionidia Kostache, for example, or Magda Matache, who is in Harvard right now, but and also Tom Lantos Institute started research about the situation of Roma in Romania during the war. And of course, this history is connected with the Transnistria. But I've not studied, and I'm not very focused in this history. So I know I cooperate, but I never conducted research. I haven't conducted research about this history.
There is a question of Patrick. Also, do you know of any archaeological study of the Roma past? Do you think the genocide and the persecution of Roma during World War II is in part responsible for Roma marginalization today?
I mean, I don't think that it's reason of. I'm not sure if I good understood the question, so please correct me if not. I think that marginalization of Roma history in post-war period, and even right now, it's a continuation of marginalization then as well. So it's anti-Gypsy. It's exclusion of Roma people from European history. And many historians and researchers say, why you, I mean, your group, your people, Roma people, you know, didn't do anything before present time. Why you know, didn't do anything in a post-war period. And as I also mentioned, it's not, you know, special Roma responsibility. It's, you know, it's my question. Where researchers who are focused on Holocaust study? Where were historians? It's our common history. Why without Roma? Next to the Jewish people, they were the group who suffered from racial policy. And the plan was a total physical extermination. So why they were excluded? Of course, it's a continuation of the marginalization, but it's also connected with the power, which I also mentioned about in the end of my my presentation. You know, when you create a narrative of, you know, historical event, And if you have a power, you have an influence on this whole story, which is, you know, part of curricula, you know, educational programs and so on. Between 50, sometimes people say even 80% of European Roma were murdered during the Nazi period. We don't know how many exactly, yeah? Because of mass extermination outside the camps, because of mass graves in a former Soviet country and lack of research about this. So we are not able to answer of this question, how many exactly? But we know that it was a majority of our society. And without country, without the recognition as a victims, how we could do this? How we could do this when you know, people who were active during the Nazi period and they had an important position, they also had this position after the war. So actually, this is my question, why? And sometimes I'm asking myself as well. I think that we should speak about this, but for me, the most important is connection between the past and the present day. Because of course the context is totally different, yeah? We don't have a war, we don't have the same situation, but we can see analogy. We can see what happened today in many places in the world. So if we see this same mechanism, we should be ready to react. But unfortunately, we are not. We forgot to speak about, in my opinion, about the past, which is not something what happened, but it's also something which can happen right now. If people did this, people can do this again. So sometimes when I have groups, young people from different countries, from all over the world, in Auschwitz, because I cooperate with the Auschwitz Museum, yeah? So after a whole day visiting, sometimes they come back and they speak about terrible things. I mean, like, okay, very poor Jewish people, oh my God, it was terrible. But you know, Gypsy, they are so problematic in my country or in my town or cities, or homosexuals. Come on, we can, you know, turn on gas chambers again, yes? So we forgot about the mentality, young people right now, about the lack of critical thinking, about fake news, about lack of sensitivity, yeah? So we are not, we didn't react in the proper way, unfortunately. And in my country, I'm terrified because of policy against minority and right now against LGBT people. So it's an open dehumanization that they are not people. So you know, I'm really scared, and I think that we should learn and speak about the history of Roma people, of homosexuals, of Jewish people. We should speak about whole mechanisms to protect ourselves right now and in the future as well.
Thank you, Joanna. And thank you for doing the connection between the past and the present. We are very sensitive here in France about this question, because I don't know if you are all aware, but last year we had raids organized by gangs against Roma neighborhood in dozens of places around Paris, because there was a fake news that was displayed in different social medias that some Romas kidnapped a child, and many of the Roma neighborhoods were just very like mass attacked, very brutally. People aggressed physically. All neighborhoods set on fire. So this is true what you are saying right now about the need of doing this this connection between the past and the present. So I don't know if you have more time, but maybe we will finish the session for today. I just wanted to, before thanking you again, I just wanted to say that the conferences was also on Facebook Live. I didn't discuss it yet with Joanna, but if she agree, it could stay for several weeks on Facebook if you would like to come back to the presentation. Of course, if Joanna has nothing against that, so you can watch it. You can watch it again. So thank you very much, Joanna, for this presentation, and just wanted also to do the last announcement about the series of conferences, and to confirm that the next one will be hosted on September 23rd, like in 2 weeks, on Wednesday, and it will be a presentation of Wendy Lauer about her new book that will be published very, very soon. So thank you very much for all having been connected, and I let you maybe the word of the end, Joanna.
Thank you. I would like to one more time emphasize that it's for me it's very, very important, and thank you so much that this topic was was a part of your work and your seminar. So I'm very really glad to be part of it. I think that is very, very important to put this topic on the table by different kind of institutions. It's not the topic which should be discussed by Roma organization or Roma institutions, but also by institutions like yours, like other museums, because we are able to reach a wider audience. So thank you so much for this, and of course you can share my email address, because I'm aware that I probably won't answer for all questions, so I'm ready to do it. And thank you so much for your presence and your attention. And I hope that our work will be continued, definitely.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone, and have a nice evening or a nice day, depending where you are. And so see you on the 23rd of September then.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.